Chapter 6 of The Plum and the Golden Vase, Chongzhen edition of Embroidered Portraits. Hee-ju took bribes to conceal the truth, and Wang Po helped him get into trouble. The wordsies, after was said goodbye, who knew the pearls were divided into jade pieces. Forget the long-lasting alliance between us, fall in love with the pheasant, and often abandon the couple. From then on, Xiao Lang's tears flowed secretly, and he looked back after passing the Qin Tower. Even if the new is better than the old, we should say goodbye and board the boat with tears. But he said that Simon King had gone. At dawn, Mrs. Wang used the money to buy a coffin, some incense, candles, paper money, etc. When she returned, she lit a portable lamp in front of Wu Daling. All the neighbors came to visit, and the woman hid her pink face and pretended to cry. The neighbors asked, "What kind of disease did Daling have so he died?" The woman replied, "I feel bad because of the harm. I don't want to get worse day by day and see if it can get better. Unfortunately, Gu died in the middle of the night last night. Okay, it's so painful." He choked up and pretended to cry again. The neighbors knew that this man died in an unknown way, so they couldn't just consult him. Everyone advised, "You are dead, and you should live in peace, madam. Save yourself the trouble. The weather is hot." The woman had to pretend to be grateful, and everyone dispersed. Mrs. Wang brought the coffin and asked Hee-ju to be the head of the group. "But I bought everything for burial, all the necessary items for my home. So I called to Zen monks to Baoan temple and worshipped and repented in the evening." Not long after, Hee-ju called several Huo families to tidy up. Let's say that when Hee-ju arrived at Sapai, he walked slowly to the entrance of Zixi Street and met Simon King. He shouted, "Where is Lao Ju going?" Hee-ju replied, "I only go to the front to bury the body of Wu Daling who sells cooking cakes." Simon King said, "Stop and talk." Hee-ju followed Simon King and came to in a small hotel around the corner. "I sat down in the pavilion." Simon King said, "Lao Ju, please take a seat." Hee-ju said, "What kind of villain dares to sit in front of a high official?" Simon King said, "Why does Lao Ju see you? Please sit down." The two gave way and sat down. Simon King told the bartender, "Get a bottle of good wine." The bartender laid out the fruits and vegetables and mixed them with the wine, while he poured the wine on. Hee-ju was suspicious and thought, "Simon King has never had a drink with me before, so there must be something fishy about today's glass of wine." After the two of them drank enough, Simon King took out a snowflake silver ingot from his sleeve and put it on the table. He said in front of him, "Lao Juxiu thinks it's a minor thing. I'll give you another reward tomorrow." Hee-ju crossed his hands and said, "How dare you accept a silver tael from a high official if you don't have any ability? If the high official has an order, I will no one dares to resign." Simon King said, "Lao Juxiu wants to see you, please accept it." Hee-ju said, "The high official said it's okay." Simon King said, "Nothing else. It's just a moment. His family has some hard-earned money. But nowadays, everything is done to bury the body of Wu Da, even if it is covered with a brocade bed." Hee-ju said, "What do I mean? These small things are not important. How dare you accept the money of a big official?" Simon King said, "If you don't accept it, you are rejecting it." Hee-ju was afraid that Simon King was a man who controlled the government, so he had to accept the money. After having a few more glasses of wine, Simon King called the bartender to come. "I have taken down the account. Come to my shop tomorrow to pay." The two of them went downstairs and walked out of the shop. Before leaving, Simon King said, "Lao Ju must remember his thoughts and not leak them. I will make up for it another day." After giving the order, he went straight away. Illustrations from the Chongzhen edition of Plum and the Golden Ping. Hee-ju took the money and thought to himself, "There is no need to mention the reason. It's just that if Wooer comes to talk to Wooer about this money, it would be a testimony to keep it." On the other hand, he thought again, "These 2 days I need some money to trouble me, and I can use it, so I can take care of it in the meantime." So he went all the way to the head of Wu Gate. I saw the Huo family waiting at the door. Wang Po was also very angry as she waited. As soon as Hee-ju arrived, he asked the Huo family, "What disease did this Wu Da student die of?" The Huo family said, "His family said he died of illness due to heartache." Hee-ju entered the door, lifted the curtain and came in. Wang Po then said, I've been waiting for a long time, and Yin and Yang have been here for a long time. Why did Lao Ju come before us? He Ju said, it's just some little things that got in the way, and I came a step late. I saw the woman. The man was wearing plain clothes, a white cloth and a bun, and he was pretending to cry from inside. He Ju said, Madam, don't worry, Da Lang has passed away. The woman hid her tears and said, it's unspeakably painful. My husband was distressed by the illness, and he lost his life in a few days. It's good to leave this slave alone. Bitter, He Ju looked at his mother-in-law's face up and down, and thought to himself, I have only heard people say Mrs. Wu, but never recognized her. It turns out that Wu Daling wanted this wife in the house. Simon King's 12 tales the money has been used. As he walked towards the soul, he looked at Wu Da's body. After reciting the Yin and Yang Sutra, he lifted up the Qian Qi flag, pulled apart the white silk, and looked intently. He saw Wu Da's fingernails were blue, his lips were purple, his face was yellow, and his eyes were protruding. He knew that he was evil. The two Huo family members next to them asked, Why are your faces purple, and there are tooth marks on your lips, and bleeding in your mouth? He Ju said, Don't talk nonsense. It has been very hot for the past 2 days. Why don't you move around? The 8-legged gourd was used to carry the coffin, and it was put into the coffin and nailed twice with long-lasting nails. Wang Po persuaded He Ju with a small amount of money and sent the firemen to their homes. Then she asked, When will we go out? Wang Po said, The eldest lady said that the funeral will take place in 3 days, and that he will be burned outside the city. Then he got up. The woman served wine to entertain people that night, and the next day she invited for monks to chant sutras. At 5 o'clock in the morning on the 3rd day, all the fire families came to carry the coffin, and a few neighbors paid their respects to each other. The woman put on her filial piety and rode in a sedan chair, pretending to cry, supporting the family all the way. When he came to the cremation field outside the city, he was taught to hold fire and burn the coffin. After a while, they burned everything and scattered the bones in the pond. It turned out that Simon King was in charge of the restaurant and paid for the rectification. The woman returned home and placed a spiritual tablet upstairs, with the words the spirit of her late husband Wu Daling written on it. A glass lamp is lit in front of the coffin, and some prayer flags, money, paper, gold and silver ingots are pasted inside. That day, he and Simon King were together and sent to Mrs. Wang's house. The two of them had fun upstairs, which was no better than in the tea room of Mrs. Wang's house, where they just stole chickens and dogs. Now that Wu Da is dead and there is no one at home, the two wantonly sleep all night. At first, Simon King was afraid that his neighbors would see through it, so he went to sit with Mrs. Wang for a while, but then he came in through the back door of the woman's house with his servant. From then on, he became deeply in love with his wife and often stayed away from home for 3 or 5 nights. He left the house in a state of disarray and made everyone unhappy. Exactly, Thekler is as bold as the sky and is not free, and the love is deep and thoughtful. Those who are greedy for pleasure have no regard for life or death, and those who dote on them will cultivate their bodies. Only because of kindness, I feel deep and depressed, but mostly because of love, I hate you. To resolve the grievances between Wu and you, there will be no rest until the end of time. Time flies, the sun and the moon fly by, and it will be more than 2 months since Simon King scraped the woman. One day, the Dragon Boat Festival is approaching, but I see. The green poplars are draped with green silk, and the pomegranates are dotted with rouge red. A slight breeze stirs the curtains, and a rustling coolness invades the fans. The Dragon Boat Festival is celebrated everywhere, and every family celebrates it together. But Simon King came back from Yu Temple and sat down in Wang Po's tea house. The woman quickly ordered a cup of tea and asked, Where are the officials coming from? Why don't you go and see the lady? Simon King said, I'm going to the temple today. I'm thinking of you during this important festival. Come here, look at Sixth Sister. The mother-in-law said, His mother Pan is here today. I'm afraid she hasn't gone yet. Wait for me to go over and take a look, and then go back to the official. When the mother-in-law walked by the woman's back door to take a look, the woman I was having a drink with Pan's mother in the room. When I saw my mother-in-law coming, I quickly gave up my seat. The woman smiled and said, "My godmother is here just in time. Please accompany my mother and have a meal, and I will raise a good baby tomorrow." The mother-in-law said with a smile, "I don't have a wife. Where can I raise one? You are young and strong. It's time to raise them," the woman said. As the saying goes, little flowers don't bear nuts like old flowers do. The old lady then looked at Pan's mother and said, "Look at your daughter. You are hurting me and saying I am an old flower. Tomorrow you're still using me." After saying that, Pan's mother said, "He has been so quick-tongued since he was a child, so my godmother should not be as familiar with him." Wang Po said, "This sister of yours has 100 talents and 100 talents. It's not in vain. What a woman. Tomorrow, I don't know what lucky person will be able to bear this." Pan's mother said, "Since my godmother is the matchmaker, everything is made possible by my godmother." While setting down the bell and chopsticks, the woman poured wine for him. Before, the mother-in-law accompanied her for several glasses of wine, and her face turned red after eating. She was also afraid that Simon King would be waiting there, so she quickly looked away at the woman, said goodbye and went home. The woman knew Simon King was coming, so she encouraged his mother to get up and go. Clean up the room, burn some strange incense, remove the leftovers from the mother's food, and prepare another table for wine and food. Simon King came through the back door, and the woman then went into the room, said a blessing and sat down. It turns out that since the death of Wu Da, how could the woman be willing to bear filial piety? Throw the Wu Daling tablet aside, cover it with a piece of white paper, and don't pick up the rice. Every day I just put on heavy makeup, wear colorful clothes, and look cute. Seeing that Simon King didn't come for 2 days, he scolded him. "How could you, a heartless thief, leave your slave and go to another house to marry someone you love? He left your slave in the cold and didn't come to pick him up." Simon King said, "I have something to do in the past 2 days. I went to the temple today and bought some jewelry and clothes for you." The woman was full of joy. Simon King called the young boy Diane to come over, took out the felt bag and gave it to the woman one by one. The woman just thanked her and accepted it. The little daughter Yinger was usually afraid of being beaten by women, so she kept it secret from him and asked him to bring tea to Simon King. On the other hand, the woman set the table and had tea with Simon King. Simon King said, "If you don't want to spend money, I have already given my godmother the money to buy things. I was just about to sit down with you during the festival." The woman said, "This is for my mother. I keep this here. Let's prepare the dishes on the table. Let's eat while our godmother buys them." And there's a delay. The woman and Simon King had their faces touching each other, their legs pressed against each other, and they were drinking side by side. Let's say that the mother-in-law walked to the street with a basket to buy wine and meat. It was early May and it was raining heavily. I saw that the red sun was suddenly covered by black clouds, and it rained heavily. But see, dark clouds spread across the fields, and black mist locked the sky. The sun is flying across the sky, and the plantains are shattered with a click. With the help of the strong wind, the old cypress trees that invaded the sky were overturned. With the thunderbolts, the Taihua Sankia was shaken, washing away the heat and moisturizing the field seedlings. This is exactly what it means. The Jianghuai River adds new water. The green bamboo and red pomegranate wash away the clear water. Illustrations from the Chongzhen edition of Plum and the Golden Ping. The woman was buying a bottle of wine and a basket of vegetables, fruits, etc. when she encountered the heavy rain on the street. She hurriedly hid under the eaves of someone else's house, wrapped her head in a handkerchief, and her clothes got soaked. After waiting for a while, the rain's feet slowed down a little, and the clouds flew home in big steps. After entering the door, he put the wine and meat under the kitchen. He walked into the room and saw the woman drinking with Simon King. He said with a smile, "The high official and the old lady like to drink. Look, the clothes on the old woman's body are all wet. When we arrive, tomorrow I will ask the high officials to compensate me." Simon King said, "Look at me, she is just a slut." The old woman said, "I am not a slut either. The high officials will have to pay me a piece of dye king. The woman said, Godmother, please drink a cup of hot wine. The woman drank 3 glasses of wine with her and said, I'm going to the kitchen to dry my clothes. As he walked to the kitchen to dry the clothes, the chicken and goose where the rice was cut and arranged. Fruits and other fruits were placed on plates and placed in the room. And wine was served. Simon King and the woman poured out the wine, exchanged glasses and drank. While Simon King was drinking, he saw a woman hanging a peep on the wall and said, I've heard for a long time that you are good at playing. I'd like to play a piece of music today, and I'll drink with you. The woman smiled and said, I have learned a few words since I was a child. It's not very good, but you don't have to laugh at it. Simon King took off the pipa, hugged the woman in his arms, watched him put it on his knees, gently stretched the jade bamboo shoots, played with the ice strings, and played slowly, sang in a low voice, Gwenair is not lazy in dressing up. Her hair is tied up in a bun with green silk on her temples, and her gold hairpin is stuck diagonally on the dark clouds, calling for the fragrance of plum blossoms, opening the cage and box, wearing a set of plain silk clothes. She looked like she. When we leave the embroidery room, plum blossoms are fragrant. You and I can roll up the curtain and burn a stick of night incense. After Simon King heard this, he was so happy that he put his arms round the woman's pink neck, kissed her on the lips, and praised, Who knew that my sister is so smart? She is just a villain in the 3 streets and 2 lanes of Gulen. No one who sings can sing with your hands. The woman smiled and said, You are so praised by the Ming officials. I will be obedient to you today. I will never forget my family in the future. Simon King held his fragrant cheeks in his hands, said, How could I forget my sister? The Tujan knew you and were teasing and playing. After a while, Simon King took off one of his embroidered shoes, held it in his hand, put a small glass of wine in it, and played with the shoe and cup. The woman said, I have such little feet. Don't make fun of me. After a while, the 2 of them were drunk, closed the door, and dressed and went to bed to play. Wang Po held the door open and sat on the floor with Yinger in the kitchen. The 2 of them were in love with each other in the room, like water and fish. That woman's pillow is more charming than a prostitute, flattering her in every possible way. Simon King also impressed with his marksmanship. The 2 girls are beautiful and talented, both in their prime years. In the quiet orchid room, the pillow is cool. How beautiful and talented the person is. Just now the red candle was poured on the pillow, but suddenly fire was stolen from the wall. White butterflies explore the fragrant flower calyx and tremble, and dragonflies play in the water. The love is strong and the joy is still lingering. Cherish Tan Lang and don't forget each other. That day, Simon King stayed at the woman's house until late at night. He wanted to go home, so he left a few taels of silver to pay for the expenses with the woman. The woman couldn't hold him back again and again. Simon King put on a blindfold and went out. The woman lowered the curtain, closed the door, and drank wine with Mrs. Wang again before leaving. Exactly, leaning on the door to see Liu Lang off. The smoke, water and peach blossoms are lost in the road.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.